What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the MME YouTube channel. My name is Tyler Egan, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing aligning our daily energies for health and vitality. Said differently, we're going to dive deeper into the circadian rhythm that every human being has baked into their neurological hardware, and we're going to be discussing a little bit more broadly circadian biology. And so, if this information speaks to you, I really want to encourage you after watching this video to take a I can't use my words right now. Take a deeper dive into circadian biology, and if you want to go even further with it, quantum biology. I did a few years ago, and it completely changed my perspective on how to handle my daily habits and routines to optimize them for a healthier way of living. And so again, I want to just invite you, if this speaks to you, to take a deeper dive through those areas of science. So with that out of the way, let's dive into what the structure of today's video is going to look like. So first things first, we're going to go through a optimal or ideal, the optimal and ideal hormonal fluctuations that a human would go through if there isn't as many external stimulation influencing us as there is. And what I mean by that is all of the blue lights. We're going to take a deeper dive into this. Did I just say deeper again? A deeper dive into this? But blue lights, abnormal stress levels, when we eat and what we eat at certain times, and our sleep hygiene, all these different things influence our circadian rhythm. We're going to take a deeper dive into that later in the video. So first things first, we're just going to go through what an ideal circadian rhythm would look like, generally speaking. Then we're going to go into daily habits and behaviors that can be greatly influencing our circadian rhythm. Thereby, it could be influencing our metabolism. So if your metabolism has slowed down, sure, age is a factor, but your circadian rhythm has a huge impact on how your metabolism functions. And so if you feel like your metabolism is slowing down, I'm not here to diminish that notion because you're probably right. What I'm here to suggest and offer you is that it may not be your age or some type of disease or illness that you're going through. Your circadian rhythm can help align your energies more. It can help align your daily habits and behaviors more so that your metabolism functions more optimally for weight loss, for health, for healing, for recovery, for all the things. So we're going to go into those habits and behaviors. We're going to break some of them down, and I'm going to make some suggestions for you guys. And I'm going to make these suggestions with the idea in mind that we are humans living in 2025, and technology is bombarded at us everywhere we go. So there are ways around some of these things, some of the technologies. So if you like to watch TV at night, things of that sort, we're going to dive deeper into those types of things because that's a whole thing in and of itself. Okay, so we'll get into those habits and routines, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the psychology of it all. Now, you may be realizing that we're taking a deep dive into all this shit. It's like, bro, just tell me about the circadian rhythm. Like, no. If you have been around for this channel, if you have followed the content I've shared over the last 6 years, then you know that I am a huge proponent of mind, body, and soul wellness, right? Health and wellness is not just about what you physically do. There are layers to this shit, and if you don't address all of the layers, they're gonna bite you in the ass later, okay? So once we go into the habits and behaviors, we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into the psychology of this, meaning your mental and emotional awareness over you implementing these habits. And then we're going to dive a little bit into the spiritual side of things because there is a spiritual component to this all. So with that out of the way, let's dive into this. Thank you for bearing with me on this intro. Cheers, y'all. Gotta hydrate. And let's get into this. So the circadian rhythm, again, in an ideal world, it would look at something, again, generally speaking like this, because there's so many factors that could go into this. But around 6 to 8 a.m., we would have a cortisol spike. So cortisol would give us that alertness to wake up and take on the day, right? A little bit later into the day, so like an hour upon waking up, cortisol will start to peak even more. So the initial cortisol spike will wake you up from your sleep, but it will continue to rise throughout the morning. Around mid-morning, so let's just call that 10 or 11 a.m., insulin sensitivity is at its highest. So when I say insulin sensitivity is at its highest, what I mean is this is going to be the best or maybe an ideal time for you to be eating carbohydrates. Okay, now as a general rule of thumb, and we're gonna get to this when we get to the habits and behaviors, but as a general rule of thumb, eating a high fiber, high protein, high fat meal is gonna be the most ideal because one, you're covering all of your bases, and two, you're not gonna get a crazy insulin spike if you eat a higher glycemic carb source. Okay, and so with all that being said, insulin sensitivity is at its highest at around 10 or 11-ish, again, generally speaking, AM. And this is when it's going to be the most ideal for you to be eating carbohydrates. So if you have issues with blood sugar levels, diabetes, things of that sort, configuring your meal timing around when insulin sensitivity is at its highest, more specifically your carbohydrate intake, is going to be ideal for you there. Around noon, 1 p.m., that's when cortisol starts to hit like its peak, and then it starts to come on the decline. Okay, so like in the morning, that's when we're at our like the morning, late morning into the early afternoon is when we're at our alertness at its highest. So if you need something where you need to be really sharp throughout the day, like that's where you're gonna want to be at and to do those activities. And then into the early mid-afternoon is when cortisol is starting to come down more. Again, because around midday it hits that peak and then it comes down from there. And there's this natural balance, this natural harmony between cortisol and melatonin. And this is why I'm saying there's a spiritual component to it too, because cortisol we can see as a masculine hormone, and melatonin we can look at as a feminine hormone because it is more responsible for rest and receiving, right? Recovery. Cortisol is alertness, taking on the day, let's fuck shit up. And so there's a balance between these two. Cortisol hits its peak, it comes down throughout the night, and then around sunset-ish, early evening, melatonin starts to rise and then hit its peak. And we need that balance between these two. So again, mid to late afternoon between, let's say 2 and 5 p.m.-ish is when cortisol is lower. And this is actually a really good time for workouts and or high intensity strength training, let's say. Because with cortisol not as high, you can use testosterone more efficiently around this time. Now the thing with this is cortisol and testosterone are both steroid hormones, and they use cholesterol in the same fashion. And so they can counteract one another if cortisol and testosterone are trying to be used at the same time. That nuanced understanding is a little bit more, it's not as important, but I just wanted to throw it in there. And then around 6 to 8 p.m. is when melatonin and leptin start to be released. Now these two are important because leptin signals satiety, and this can happen throughout your meals throughout the rest of the day. But it's more important later in the evening because it signals satiety and can tell your nervous system to kind of like down-regulate. So that's when the nervous system goes into rest and digest versus fight or flight, right? And then melatonin, again, is that sleep hormone. Not to be confused with the pill at the store. Please do not take those. It can really fuck up this rhythm we're talking about here. And so leptin and melatonin start to release around that time. Melatonin will start to tell your nervous system like, hey, go to sleep, bro. And then around 9 to 11 is when those two hormones start to hit their peak. Now, sometime overnight in the early morning, leptin actually will signal to your brain energy output for the next day. So how much energy that you're looking to expend the next day. It's a really fascinating thing. So that's the general overview of it all. And so with that all in mind, what can we take away from this? Well, what we can take away from this is when cortisol is at its highest, that's when we're at our most alert. So if we need to do activities, work-related things around that time, that's when, and we want to be sharp and ready to make a presentation, whatever it is, that's when we want to do it because we're sharp, we're alert, we're fucking mentally on it, right? And then as cortisol starts to drop down, we may want to do things where we don't, like it may require higher levels of energy, but not require as much mental capacity, right? So that's why we're also saying early afternoon is an ideal time for working out because cortisol is lower, but your body can use testosterone more efficiently. And then as we get into the evening, that's when we want to start to have habits, routines, behaviors that down-regulate the nervous system. Like if you want to do breath work, reading, connection with family and friends, sitting by a bonfire, the lights emitted from the fire itself, albeit it's not the same thing, but it emanates the same wavelength of lights that come from the sun that signal all of this circadian rhythm that we're discussing here. Because much like and we're gonna start to get into the habits now, much like your body will naturally tell you through waking up that like cortisol is being released, the sun indicates it too through the blue light exposure it gives you first thing in the morning. So now let's talk about the habits and behavior. So blue light exposure is an extremely important one. And maybe I should use my words a little bit differently, because I don't want to mean extreme as in go extreme with this. I mean, it's just something to be extremely mindful. I did it again. It's just something to be mindful of. Okay, we live in a technologically driven world, and we cannot escape blue lights. There's no way around it. The lights in your houses have it. The blue lights, the ring lights I'm using right now to light this video have it. Everything is emitting blue light exposure. So it's inescapable, but we can minimize it. And there are ways around it all. If you're familiar with biohacking, those people are all about that kind of shit. So blue light exposure is a big thing. In the morning, when you wake up, and again, I'm still speaking in an ideal world because I understand that people have overnight jobs. I used to work an overnight job. I used to work weird ass hours. I used to work in factories where I didn't see the sunlight for 12 hours. So I understand there are things around that. And if you have specifics, please feel free to, if you have a specifically unique situation, please drop a comment down below and I would love to offer some suggestions for you. But with that stuff aside though, in an ideal world, you want to get blue light exposure from the sun first thing in the morning. Okay, before you start looking and scrolling on your phone, before you start getting bombarded with all the lights in your house or whatever it is, get outside and get some sunlight exposure. And if you can't get your first light exposure from the sun, because I personally cannot, I'm usually up before the sun is up. I get out and get sunlight exposure first thing not first thing, I get it every morning. So it's like 2 hours after I wake up, I get outside and I sit in front of the sun for about 5 minutes or so, just so my internal clock is regulated with the sun from the beginning of the day. Okay, so blue light exposure first thing in the morning is important. And then if you can in the afternoon, again, this doesn't have to be crazy. Like an ideal world, we'd be outside way more than we are, but we're not in those circumstances. Our social structures, our lives, our work, they call for vastly different things than our human bodies were initially intended to be exposed to. And so we can find a balance, a harmony between the work that we have to do already, and then honoring the circadian rhythm, the natural internal clock that we all have. So then get outside midday, lunchtime, after you eat lunch or something like that, and just sit outside for like 2 minutes and just be aware where the sun's at. Get your skin exposed to the sun, right? Even in small ways, because there are photoreceptors in your skin that can pick up on the light being emitted from the sun. Okay, and then at nighttime, listen, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite because I watch Netflix shows at nighttime and stuff like that, but there are totally ways around all of this stuff, and I gotta get up really fast. The light you see behind me, it looks cool. Maybe you don't think so, but I think so. It looks really cool being able to change the colors. And I got a little remote here so you can see. I don't know if you guys can see that. But the reason I bought this initially was because I can turn it to red. So what I do is I have 3 red light bulbs in my house so that at nighttime, I'm not being bombarded with the blue lights from all the other colors or from the other lights in my house. And when I started to do this, holy shit, did I feel so much more relaxed that night. Because again, there are photoreceptors in your skin. And if you are turning all the LED lights on in your house at nighttime, all the bright ass lights, your body is gonna think it's the middle of the day. And so it's gonna try to produce cortisol accordingly. Okay, so blue light exposure is super important. Now again, there are hacks around these things, but my general rule of thumb is turning technology off a half an hour before bed and waiting half an hour to an hour in the morning before I start looking at my phone. That way I can get my nervous system regulated to the sun and to nature rather than to a piece of technology. The next thing I want to talk about is caffeine regulation. Okay, caffeine naturally elevates our cortisol levels. right? There's a neurotransmitter or hormone, I can't remember which one it is, it's called adenosine. And what happens is caffeine actually binds to that and blocks it. Adenosine is what tells us that we're sleepy. And caffeine actually blocks that. Not inherently, it's not a bad thing, but when we're consuming caffeine at night, that's what ends up keeping us up, because what would normally tell our brain that we're sleepy is not being released because the caffeine is blocking it. So first things first, cutting off your caffeine like 6 to 8 hours before bed is a good general rule of thumb. And then waiting like 1 to 2 hours upon waking up to have caffeine is a good general rule of thumb. This is because we do not want to become dependent on needing caffeine to wake up. Caffeine's a phenomenal thing and I love it. I have 2 cups of coffee every single day. Every single day without a hesitation, because I enjoy coffee. Like, I'm not here to be a hypocrite or tell you guys not to drink it. What I'm suggesting is push the window back for when you wake up. That way your body is not dependent on caffeine to wake up in the morning. And your cortisol levels can naturally rise and naturally fall. Because when we drink caffeine first thing in the morning, the cortisol spike doesn't happen naturally on its own. You're spiking it with the caffeine usage. So you let the cortisol come up, and then when it peaks, it comes down on its own. Caffeine is just something that's happening in between there. Next thing I'm gonna talk about is cold and heat exposure. I mean, cold plunges, saunas, I think these things are blowing up these days. And so I just wanna hit on these really fast. Cold exposure is gonna be better in the mornings. Heat exposure is gonna be better in the evenings. Now, again, perfect world, ideal circumstances. If you have other specifics that you can't do it that way, please drop a comment down below. I would love to offer some assistance with anybody who is willing to share and open to share any particular situations that they experience. So cold exposure, because cold exposure is going to activate your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response system. And it actually helps with dopamine regulation as well. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've looked into this research, but if I'm not mistaken, cold exposure actually will release similar, if not the same amount of dopamine as cocaine does. It's just not at the same intensity, meaning it's more of like a slow drip. So if you take like a cold shower first thing in the morning, your body like slowly is releasing dopamine, whereas cocaine, it's all at once. I mean, so cold exposure is gonna be better in the evening, and it's gonna naturally help with that cortisol spike, and heat exposure is the opposite. It'll help down-regulate the nervous system at the end of the day. Meal timing. So this is a big one, because I think this information has gotten misconstrued over the years with like the fitness industry saying that like it doesn't matter when you eat as long as you're within the calorie restrictions. And there is some validity to that statement, and there's some validity to the meal timing. The more hormonal struggles you have, the more important meal timing can be. I'm going to say that one more time because this is the nuance that gets lost in the fitness industry's oversimplification. The more hormonal struggles you have, the more important your meal timing can be. Meaning, especially if you have, insulin issues, like whether it's diabetes, pre-diabetes, things of that sort, or even better yet, if you are concerned with diabetes because it runs in your family, meal timing plays a more important role. Again, like I want to come back to one of the things I shared earlier, insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity, okay? When our bodies are insulin sensitive, or the insulin sensitivity is at its highest, that's when our bodies can handle insulin spikes better. So this is going to be, again, earlier in the morning. And this could be, and I don't know this for sure, but this could be where breakfast is the most important of the day comes from, because if insulin sensitivity is at its highest, then that's the best time to eat carbohydrates because your body can handle it the best. This is also going to be highest after a workout. Okay, now again, I'm not saying you can't eat carbs at different times. I'm not saying you can't eat carbs late at night. Again, I do. The more we can align our daily habits, behaviors, and routines to be in rhythm with the natural ebb and flow of the sun and the moon, and the more we can regulate our hormones that way, the better our bodies are going to be to adapt to unique situations. What I mean by that is, during the summertime, I have a huge kick for ice cream. And I'm not talking about like low-calorie banana and ice cream stuff. I'm talking about, give me a pint of fucking Ben & Jerry's. You know what I mean? And like, make no mistake about it, there's nothing healthy about that pint of Ben & Jerry's. It's like 1,200 calories of pure crap. And it totally spikes my insulin levels. I can feel it. But because I have gotten to a place where I know how to regulate my nervous system and my hormones, like I know what it feels like. I don't panic, I don't lose my shit or anything like that. And I can bring my nervous system back down when that insulin spikes and cortisol follows it. So again, just doing these types of things, aligning these behaviors this way really can help you regulate your hormones intrinsically. I'm not saying you'll be able to like tell your body what to do, but it will just help you be able to manage your own stress levels as well, because you'll be able to feel cortisol surges and you'll know what it is. So meal timing can play a huge role in that. So general rule of thumb, high protein, high carb, high fat high fiber meals. This will avoid high insulin spikes, right? One of the biggest issues that people run into with insulin issues is they're getting these crazy insulin spikes all the time. Like I remember at one of the gyms I worked at, there was a guy who came in one day, and I mean, he was a younger guy. He had, he was really low energy. So the gym owner gave him like a Rice Krispie treat or something, like some kind of candy, really, really high sugar, no nutritional value. And what this does is it spikes your insulin, and it will temporarily, and by association because of the glucose being flooded into your system, it'll give you an energy spike. But this leads to a crash later. And so when we eat these highly processed, highly refined, sugary carbohydrate foods, what's actually happening is it's not the carbs in and of themselves. It's the spike in insulin and the crash later, right? So we want to avoid those crashes. And again, when it happens in small doses, so like when I eat my Ben & Jerry's over the summertime, my body knows how to handle it. My body knows how to regulate itself so that that crazy insulin spike doesn't lead to a crazy crash later where I'm like, you know what I mean? So high fiber, high fat, let me make sure I say this right this time, high protein meals are gonna ensure that we are getting all of the nutritional value we need so that we're not getting crazy blood sugar spikes from our meals. Okay, so even if you have Lucky Charms with some fruit and oatmeal, you're not gonna get the same blood sugar spike as if you just had the Lucky Charms. And that's where we're getting the most out of it. But again, general rule of thumb, all your meals should kind of encompass those things. And then beyond that, eating carbs earlier in the day is gonna be more ideal than eating them later at night. Carbs earlier in the day is gonna be more ideal for later at night. Cortisol is a hormone that actually does work well with, carbohydrates. And so by using carbs earlier in the day, when our cortisol levels are higher, we're actually working with our biology rather than fighting against it, eating higher carb meals at night. So meal timing is that. One thing I want to just kind of put a sidebar on, cheers, because this is really good timing here. And if you're still with me, because I did not intend for this, I'm going to make this a two-part video and talk about the psychological and the spiritual things in another video, because this is taking really long, but there's a lot of nuance and detail into this that I feel like I'd be doing a disservice if I did not dive as deeply into this as I am. So the sidebar though is hydration. Being dehydrated can fuck with your cortisol levels. So when I say cortisol levels, if it hasn't been clear, I do mean stress levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and they go hand in hand. When your body is releasing cortisol, you are feeling stressed. Again, stress is I'm saying again, I don't know if I've said this yet. Stress is a natural part of everyday life. We can't avoid it, and if we could, well, then human experience wouldn't be the human experience. So stress is a natural part of daily lives, our daily lives. But chronic stress is a completely different ball game. And being dehydrated, eating those highly processed, high sugar carbohydrate meals is going to negatively impact our cortisol levels. And so just as a quick sidebar, dehydration can influence these things as well. So if you haven't been drinking water all day and it's 7 o'clock at night and you're hella dehydrated, you could be feeling anxious and overwhelmed and stressed out. And it's like, well, this isn't making sense. I'm just sitting here, I'm laying down on the couch and I'm stressed out. What's going on? Well, you're dehydrated. And that is telling your body, like, we're in danger. And so now cortisol is being released because it doesn't Your body has a natural system with these hormones, and the body doesn't care that you're laying on the couch chilling at night. Psychologically, that could be comforting, but physiologically, your body's dehydrated. That's all it knows, right? So hydrating yourself is important. Not just drinking water, but getting the necessary electrolytes and minerals for that. That doesn't mean drink Gatorade. Please, for the love of God, do not drink Gatorade. That is fucking garbage. It is pure trash, okay? The nutrients they put in there do not outweigh the amount of sugar and other garbage they put in there. When I'm talking about electrolytes, like, you can get this from food. You don't have to buy a drink or a powder for this. You can get this from food. Fruits are naturally high in fruits have electrolytes in them, like potassium. People think of bananas when they think of potassium. Avocados and sweet potatoes are actually higher in potassium than bananas. Totally eat your bananas too. I just wanted to throw that out there. So we get these minerals naturally from food. But also, I don't know if you can see it in my glass here, but I put a sprinkle of sea salt in my water because it will naturally contain the trace minerals we need to fully absorb water. When our water, wow, I am really taking a deep dive in this. If you're still here, I fucking love you. But our water, if you're getting like reverse osmosis or you're buying something like that from the store, they remove the minerals from it in the cleansing process. So we got to put them back in there. And sea salt, generally speaking, will contain the trace minerals necessary so that we can absorb it. Drinking water alone, if you feel like you're going to the bathroom a lot, it could be because it's going right through you, because your cells aren't absorbing the water. So we want the cells to fully hydrate and absorb that water. They need the trace minerals for that. So that's the sidebar. And then the last two areas I want to cover, and this would be a great segue into the psychological stuff, but we'll take a deeper dive into that in the next video, is sleep hygiene and stress management. So sleep hygiene, meaning like the daily habits and behaviors you have around your sleep schedules. So how you wake up in the morning. Again, are you waking up by bombarding yourself, scrolling on the TikToks and the Instagrams? Or are you just allowing your body to naturally wake up in the morning? Or, and at nighttime, are you allowing your nervous system to downregulate and ease into the evening? Or are you being face fucked with technology? Again, I'm not sitting here being a hypocrite. There are ways around it. I actually have blue light blocking glasses. I turn the screen brightness down on my thing. I have what you call it? What is it called? A technology cutoff. So that even if I stay up a little bit later because I'm into a show, I give myself a half an hour to an hour before I go into bed so that my nervous system can relax from the screen. So you can really start to optimize your habits and behaviors around this. And if your stress levels are chronic, they're through the roof, if you're always stressed out, and let me tell you all something. If you're somebody who is like, I don't feel like I'm stressed out all the time. I don't feel like I'm stressed out a lot. Like I feel okay. Then being stressed out could be your normal. And again, I'm not saying this to be mean or judgmental. I'm saying this to someone who experienced it. I was so used to being stressed out all the time that it felt normal. So that when I started to align my energies this way, and started to get my circadian rhythm in a more functional or optimal routine, what ended up happening was it didn't feel normal for my nervous system to be more regulated. So I actually got anxious about being calm. I'm gonna say that again because this was actually interesting to say out loud. I got anxious about being calm because it just didn't feel right because I was so used to being stressed out all the time. And so if you don't feel like you're stressed out all the time, then you could be chronically stressed out. I know it's kind of like there's like a paradox in there, but you could be chronically stressed out. So your nervous system is wired to be stressed out all the time. And by starting to do this, you're going to start to see that because you're going to start to relax more, and it's going to feel weird at first. So actually, let me see how much time we got. How long is this video? Yeah, we're at 30 minutes. You know what? Fuck it. I'm on a roll here. I'm in the zone. We're gonna keep going, y'all. We're gonna keep going, and we'll see who watches a 45-minute long video on this because this was not my intention, but I'm so fucking here for this. Because you know what? Let me, cheers. If you're still here with me, you're a real MVP. I have tried in so many ways to condense the information I share and my approach to sharing content and educating. And the brick wall I keep coming up against is the fact that I love talking about this shit. I love nerding out. I love diving so fucking deep into this stuff. And I feel like what I actually do sometimes by trying to condense the videos down is I strong arm myself into being something I'm not. I love talking about this shit. I could do this all day long. So let's with that in mind, here, since you guys are witnessing this with me, let's fucking do this. Okay, so let's dive into the psychological component of this. So again, everything I'm sharing here, everything I'm talking about in this video is just like ideal circumstances. You know, again, our world today, the jobs out there, the way people live, our nervous systems, because of the way we've grown up for like the millennial generation, actually even people older than us, like our nervous systems are dysregulated these days. So what I shared is if you have the patience to begin to re-regulate your nervous system to be in alignment with the natural cycle of the sun, and I could not recommend it more. It can be a time-consuming process. It might take like a year for you to get more harmonized with the way you want to live, but it's so fucking worth it. So with that being said though, this is all optimal. This is all in an ideal world. Okay, and I wanna highlight that because if you have life circumstances, like even having children and working a full time in today's world, it's gonna be challenging to orient your life around what I just shared. Some of you might work out in the morning. Totally do that. I'm not saying don't, okay? Totally do what you gotta do because the psychological component of this is gonna be just as maybe, if not more important than the physical things that you put into place, right? Like physiologically speaking, these things are happening. Physiologically speaking, this hormone flow is unfolding. But practically speaking, your life might not allow it. So you have to understand that for a moment and meet yourself where you're at. Now, people can intellectually understand that, but embody that within their being is the more challenging part. Saying it is not the same thing as embodying that. So psychologically speaking, you have to meet yourself where you're at. And I really can't emphasize that enough. If you're comparing yourself to other people and their journeys and what they're doing and comparing yourself, like if you're listening to this video and you're comparing yourself to me and what I have shared about myself in this video, please understand that we are different people and we have to respect and honor our humanness in this. Okay, like stress, chronic stress coming from internal circumstances or internal situations, internal battles, can negatively impact this just as much. And so we have to really look at like our beliefs and our emotions and the wounds that we are psychologically holding onto, our stories, before we start to take a deeper dive into overhauling our life around these things. Like this can help with emotional regulation. This can help with nervous system regulation, harmonizing your day with the circadian flow. But only if you are mentally equipped for that. Only if you're mentally equipped for that. So the thing we have to understand here is like the human mind loves quick fixes. Like, let's be real. Marketing wouldn't be a thing if quick fixes, marketing wouldn't have such a negative impact on our society if we didn't love quick fixes. And the one thing I can't emphasize enough from this is this information is not a quick fix. Like I shared, it can help re-establish your metabolism. It can help with hormonal regulation. It can help with weight. I didn't say this, but it can help with weight loss. It can help with mental health issues. Truly, it can. But it is not a quick fix. And I cannot emphasize that enough. If your mind is going to a place right now, it's like, oh my God, this is it. This is the thing I've been missing. No, it's not. It is absolutely not the thing you've been missing. It can certainly be a phenomenal tool, and I could not recommend aligning your circadian rhythm more, but it is not the solution to your problem, okay? Psychologically speaking, if your mind is starting to think that this is the answer, it is totally fucking not. Right? The mind loves to project certain things onto certain information, certain circumstances, and it loves to be like, this is the thing. And we have been programmed in our society to think that the external world can fix an internal problem. That's what I'm saying. If you're comparing yourself to me or anybody else that you see on the internet, that is where your work lies, not cutting off the blue light exposure at night will totally help, but not allowing the mind to distract you from the truth. The psychological and emotional side of these things is just as, maybe if not more important than the physical practices you put in place to help with your health. Do the physical practices, but do it from a space of self-love. Do it from a place of, I want to take care of myself, not I'm trying to fix myself. You are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. And if you feel that way, and the comparison is that signal for you, please, I want to invite you to take a deeper dive into that. If that means you have to hire someone to help you, like go see a therapist, something, please do it. If you can do the work on your own, amazing, do that too. But you have to look internally at the psychological side of these things. Because again, the mind and the way we've been programmed in our society these days is that the physical world and the physical things we do is how we get the outcomes we want. It's how we get love. It's how we know we're worthy. And that shit is not fucking true. I cannot emphasize that enough. And if your mind is pulling that game with you right now, just notice it. My mind does that shit all the fucking time. And I just hold the space for it. We just sit here and we just notice the mind doing what the mind does. The mind's a problem-solving, survival mechanism machine, right? It's designed to keep us alive and solve problems. And so when you start thinking that way, it's because the mind has identified that the problem is that you need to be fixed. You don't. No matter where you're at in your journey, no matter how unhealthy you feel, no matter how unloved or unworthy you feel, no matter how broken you feel, right? You're fine as you are. And I know that's not gonna feel like it's true yet, but please understand that this is not a quick fix. That's the whole reason I'm saying all this. This is not a quick fix. It will not solve the internal struggles you're dealing with. Your health, your wellness is a reflection of your internal state. Your health and wellness is a reflection of your internal state. If you feel broken, if you feel like you need to be fixed, if you feel unworthy, unloved, you have to work on that just as much as you do the physical practices. Do not let the physical practices and the physical changes be a Band-Aid you slap over top of the wound that has come from your emotions. That stuff's just as important. And if you wanted me to take a deeper dive into that at all, please drop a comment down below. But again, the two go hand in hand. The physical and the psychological side of these things go hand in hand. Because the more you can start to implement these habits and behaviors into your circadian rhythm, the more your nervous system will naturally go with the ebbs and flows of the day, and you'll start to feel more relaxed. And it's so much easier to work on nervous system and emotional regulation when you're not fighting your own biology. Right? When we do the physical practices that aid our humanness, our biology, then it puts us in a better situation to then heal the wounds within the psyche. Right? Rewire the mind, rewire the nervous system, and be healthy and feel healed. And then the last thing I want to take a deeper dive into is the spiritual side of these things. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, so if you want to hear more about this, we did a video a few months back. We did a video discussing the anatomy of masculine and feminine energies, and in that we talked about some of the hormones of the masculine and the feminine energies. So there will be a link down below or a card somewhere up here. Check that video out too if you want to understand that a little bit, this idea a little bit more. But the spiritual side of this is just this. The more that we get our circadian rhythm back in tune with the sun, the more harmonized we'll feel with nature, the more harmonized we will be with nature, because we are just as much nature as a tree. Right? We are just as much nature as a tree or a plant or grass. Right? There's a reason we have a natural internal clock that is regulated by the sun, because we are a part of Pachamama. We are a part of Mother Earth. And being out in nature, grounding, all those things, they're great. I'm not saying don't do them. Please do them. And also, maybe you don't have time to go walk in the woods for a little bit. You got kids and all these priorities. Cool. Your circadian rhythm will help you feel in tune with nature, because you're not fighting your biology by staying up till midnight because you can't sleep, because you're stressed out because of the blue lights or because of work or whatever it is. You understand? So it'll naturally harmonize your own energies with nature, right? The masculine sun and your masculine energy of cortisol, and the nighttime, the moon, and the feminine energy of melatonin, right? And, you know, in our culture today, there's just like this wounded masculine energy of like, I have to prove my worth. I have to prove that I'm worthy of love and all of these things. And spiritually speaking, this can help you align your masculine energies, man or woman. Because now, again, you're not fighting biology anymore. Our masculine energies are going to be higher during the day. But if we're fighting them by if we're fighting our natural our biology by being in our masculine all day, every day at nighttime, because we're stressed out because we're unworthy, we're not good enough, well, then there's just going to be a disruption in the natural harmony between our masculine and feminine energies. But if we align our circadian rhythm, it can help us naturally align our masculine energies. So we can be in alignment with our purpose. We can be in alignment with our goals and our values and things of that sort. And then last but not least, this really ties into the harmony or the alignment with masculine energies. But the more and more you do this, the more and more you get your circadian rhythm in alignment with the sun, with the moon, the more and more it naturally harmonizes we naturally harmonize with the ebbs and flows of life. Right? Again, stress is a natural part of life, just as much as sleep is. But we are so chronically stressed out all the time these days, generally speaking, whether it's because of our work-life relationships, because of anxiety, mental health issues, because of blue light exposure and all of the toxicity that comes from our technologically driven world. And it disrupts that harmony, our ability, let me say, to ride the ebbs and flows of life. And this can be a gateway into being able to ride those ebbs and flows. Because think about it, y'all, we can posture and strategize all the ways to optimize X, Y, and Z, but if you can't optimize a single day to be in alignment, to get your own energies in alignment, hormonally speaking, for the benefit of your health, then having a 10-year plan is going to be fucking irrelevant, because you can't even own one day, let alone own the next 10 years, right? And so getting our circadian rhythm back in tune with the sun, it gives us the ability to ride the natural ebbs and flows of life, because we ride the natural ebbs of cortisol being spiked first thing in the morning and we're stressed out, and then the come down with the ebbs and flows, I just said that twice, with the natural flow of cortisol coming down and melatonin being released and we sink into our feminine energy more. So I'm gonna wrap it up there, y'all. Thank you so much if you're still here for watching the entirety of this video. I fucking love you for bearing with me throughout the entire thing. I really hope you all took something from this. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content like this. Let us know if anything spoke to you in this video. If there was anything that's like, hey, maybe that could really help, or or like you had an aha moment, like please, the more you can share this, the more we can amplify our energy from this content, from this community, and I would love to see more of that. So please drop a comment down below. Let us know if anything spoke to you, if you want us to dive a little bit deeper into any one area. And with that out of the way, I'll see you on the next video. Namaste.